Hey, Nick,
Hey Jen,
I hear you have a problem.
I do. I am building a new group travel retreat, and I've always used just fixed pricing because it's nice and easy. Once in a while, I've been playing around with the percentage, and that's been easy as well. But you've got this button called Dynamic, and I'm scared to click it. But if YouLi rolled it out, I bet it's kind of cool. So please show me what I'm doing.
Absolutely. You should not be afraid of dynamic. In fact, you should embrace the dynamic payment plans. And I'm going to show you why. So I've got your new event coming up, an example where you have your event only pricing and you have your event with accommodation pricing, and those are quite different. So this is an extreme example to kind of demonstrate the power of dynamic pricing. And you can see that the price is 2,000 for the event only, and it's 8 to 12,000 depending on occupancy for the one with accommodation. So very different. So if we're coming down to our payment schedule and you click to add your deposit, what you would previously have done is click the fixed amount button, and then you would have entered your $500 deposit as your fixed amount. But then that would have locked you in to fixed pricing. And because you've got these different amounts for the different packages, you might actually want to charge different deposit amounts for the different ones based on how expensive those packages are. So you could, of course, do percentage. That's an option there. But if you do dynamic, you get the power of percentage. You can achieve fixed when you want to, and you have even more flexibility. So that's why it's our default and our recommended option. So when you pick dynamic, it defaults it actually to a fixed model. So if you wanted to, you could just accept this, which is 1% rounded to 500. So effectively, it's a $500 fixed deposit. And we're just going to set this to be due one day out. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on the checkout flow. So you can see here if the customer selects the $2,000 option, they're paying a $500 deposit. If they pick the one with accommodation, which is single supplement 12,000, they're also paying 500 and then a pretty big balance there, right? And that will change dynamically based on occupancy. So it'll drop to 8,000 per person, but then of course there's two people, so it's a $1,000 deposit in that case. All of that happens magically dynamically. Great. But now you're thinking to yourself, boy, that's a big difference. So you could add more installments, which is obviously always an option, but you might also want to take more for the deposit when you've got a really expensive package and less when you've got the lower one. So let's walk through how you use the dynamic pricing plan to achieve exactly that. So you go back in here and you kind of flip it around. So instead of doing 1%, we're going to suggest maybe doing a 15% deposit, rounding to the nearest 100. I'm just making that up. You could round it to 1, you can round it to 10. Depends on how round you like your numbers to be. So it just means it's going to do 15% and then round to the nearest 100. So don't worry, it's not going to round up and take more money than it should, because remember that the balance due always accounts for whatever's left. So you're not charging them more when you're doing that rounding. And so then I'm just going to save that change. And then we're going to see how that affects on the checkout flow. So already you can see the default one is the less expensive one, the 2,000. Deposit is $300 now. So that's nice because the smaller package is a little bit more accessible. So that just feels a little bit more approachable for that lower price point. And then for the more expensive one, you can see that's gone up to 1,800. So that feels a little bit better for the size of that, right? It reduces your risk because you're getting them to commit more upfront for a pretty significant commitment. And then you can see, of course, if you switch that to be two people, that will then change the price per person based on how you've configured the pricing. And then it is the deposit, which is 15% rounded up to the nearest 100 times 2. Now I'm walking you through all that math. You don't have to do the math. You just have to set up what I just showed you and then see how it plays out on your checkout flow and make sure that that feels right for the customer experience that you want to create. So you can either do 50, or sorry, 50, 500 for both of them, or you can make it dynamic. And so the beautiful thing about that is that the dynamic plan allows you to do either fixed or percentage based, depending on how you want to make that work. And then in addition to that, now that we've figured out our deposit, we're realizing, boy, we probably do need some extra installments. And so we're going to make some installments that are due out in the future. And you'll notice that no more choices here because it's a dynamic installment plan. So it's actually going to figure out how much the person owes for this installment based on how much they've paid for the deposit, how much they have remaining, and how many installments they have remaining between now and when the trip departs. And it will actually automatically divide them up based on when they book. So this is really brilliant. All you have to do is do a little bit of math when you're doing the deposit, and then the rest is just deciding how many chunks you want to split the installments up into. A lot of our clients like to do this on a monthly basis. So you can do, one in April and one in May. And because these are dynamic, if I come and book in April 25th, I actually won't see this installment. I'll only see the May one, and it'll dynamically adjust that because there's only one installment left before the balance due. So we just take care of that magic for you. That's why we strongly recommend picking the dynamic plan. And then you just have to make that one decision when you're setting up your deposit. What do you think? Ready to use dynamic plans?
I'm ready to use dynamic plans. That's going to save my folks from the folks who join late to all of a sudden have these giant balloon payments that they've got to deal with. This is going to be fantastic.
Happy to help. Looking forward to the next one.